Hello, everyone. Dustin Yoder here from Surify. We are going to give it a couple minutes as people get logged in and signed up. We have, wow, that's amazing. We almost have 100 people already in the first minute. So I am excited. I can't believe it. As we had well over 200, I think it was 250 plus registered for today, which we thought was a great outcome. So thank you all for signing up for our little session today. We're going to give it one more minute. Why we do that? Why don't we quickly throw around the horn with some quick introductions, because I want to take the couple of minutes while we let people get registered here. Bobby?
Hello, everyone. My name is Bobby Shrivastava. I'm a co-founder and chief product officer for Benekiva.
Nick?
Hey, everyone. My name is Nick Zambrino. I'm the life insurance lead on Human API's growth team. Really excited to be here today. Dustin, thanks so much for the invite.
And Dror?
My name is Dror Katsav. I'm the CEO and one of the founders of Atidot, and I'm happy to be here as well. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
And lastly, we got me, Dustin Yoder, from Surify, CEO here. I say nowadays I work for everybody else around here and try to stay ahead on what the life insurance market wants to do. So very excited to have you all, just about touching 100 people. So we're going to get the party started. So a little bit, let's see, start presentation. So today we have a total of an hour on the clock today, but the goal is to get through a few things. So to start off, they gave me the opportunity to give a quick overview of pre and post COVID life insurance. I'm going to try not to jump too far in because we want to save that for the for everybody here and for questions. The second thing we're going to do is specifically jump to the insurtechs on the line, talk about how COVID's affected the demand in their business and what specific solutions are really getting called out. And then thirdly, we're going to spend the last half of this session, one, asking everybody on the call a bunch of questions so we have some real-time round robin, and then wrapping up with your questions that you submit. So on the right-hand side, you should have a chat function in which you can submit questions, and we're going to get those going for the last 10 plus minutes here on the call. So that's what we got today. We do have some admins in the background, so you can chat things in if there's any problems that you need to call out and help us with. Wow, we have crossed 100 people, so this is great. Thank you all for coming. I'm going to get started right now. All right. You know who's on the call: Bobby, Dror, Nick, and myself, all from, we think, fast emerging insurtech. Surify just crossed 100 people. We're very excited to be serving some of the top insurers here. And most of the people on the call, actually everyone here, the reason we invited them is we're all in the same places, and we're all, with this COVID era, seeing massive, massive growth. What's interesting, a couple things. I'm no expert on the actual market. However, it is interesting. Unlike I'm not the research firm, but I will tell you, looking at what LIMRA is predicting, we are seeing Q1 of 2020 see some pretty good gains. One to note here is that term life has shot up pretty dramatically. You could probably imagine that's due to COVID, but it's the highest growth we've seen since 2007 in term life, which I thought is a super interesting fact. And if you look at what we see insurers want, that is a lot of times the entry point to further products or further product sales. So definitely something to take note of. Also, if you're wondering kind of how the economy and or COVID specifically has affected sales, we don't have the second quarter results, as you all know, and COVID really, has been going over this. However, Q1 has seen an increase this year in premiums, and I think that's just important to note that. And I would expect actually that we're going to see pretty dramatic growth in Q2, because everything we see on our side, as well as hear from the clients, is there's a lot of applications coming through because one, the world is thinking about death maybe for the first time in a while. And two, and that's just a reality, we got to protect. And then secondly, one thing I've always asked is what's going to happen during a recession, et cetera, to our market. And in actuality, life insurance, annuities, et cetera, bring security. And in not a bull market, right, people start thinking about these as really good protection mechanisms. So great to see. I will tell you, like, we are in 2020, D2C continues to emerge. I thought it's always interesting to ask ourselves, like, where are we? Like, we're going to talk about major insurers and how we are working with them. However, what you really see here is that we have continued growth in the direct-to-consumer market. Don't be offended, number one, if you're not on here. And two, I'm intending to show there's a couple aggregators and stuff mentioned here, but these are players that insurers are going to. And I'd also highlight that this is a lot about what we see major insurers looking at to say, can we at least compete with or most likely beat these players in a head-to-head race, whether that's on technology enablement, access, are we in those channels? So I think this is continuing. If I go back to when we launched in 2000, we launched in 2012, but ultimately our B2B model in 2015, 16, what you will see is like this list has grown dramatically, and I wouldn't expect it to go away anytime soon. I think we're going to see more and more growth. For my last minute here to get the party started, I think it's important just to highlight like pre-COVID, post-COVID, and really say like, why are we here today? Why have all of our leads across the InsurTech channels on analytics, data, and application access, and ultimately like that full stack insurer changed? And I think it's important to look at the process and say, and I'll talk about post-COVID. So the process is this, right? You got to hear about life insurance. You got to have someone to sell it, right? Distribution. You then have like the application you go through. I'm purposely not highlighting the specifics here because I'm going to get there. Then you got to underwrite that. This is all natural, right? Then you got to deliver or not deliver the policy, i.e. when it goes in. Then it's in force. Then you got to service it. Maybe you engage with it, which is very rare, but we care about that here at Surify. And then hopefully you don't have to, but you have a claim event. And we know for example, in term, less than 1%, but ultimately, like this is the highest level, quick shotgun overview of a pre-COVID world. I think what I want to highlight though is, well, we're post-COVID, right? Like COVID has hit. And the question is, are we getting more leads? Like, what's the market doing? And I can tell you at Surify, COVID has the word I use, exposed the digital liabilities that exist with insurers today, right? So all that we saw overnight was that anything that was a linked chain that required a person, it broke, right? Like there was not a full digital flow or something in the flow broke. So for example, if 95% of life products are sold through an agent, and that's where the awareness is created, no one's sitting over lunch with an agent. No one's going into their financial planning office, right? So awareness just had a huge, huge break. However, COVID did help people think about death. And now they're saying, where do I access this distribution, right? So interestingly enough, we know 95% of life insurance is sold through an agent. Well, I can't meet with them still, right? This is on the distribution side. So can I go digital to meet this need, right? Well, all of us on the call probably know very few companies really have a D2C digital distribution or an omni-channel, right? So once again, chain was broken. Lots of calls coming in, and we'll get into that later. The application itself, are you sending fax and paper, right? Or are you actually sending a true digital application to sell? Okay, you fill that out. Well, now we have underwriting. We still know that less than 50% of applications that are using accelerated underwriting are really getting passed through, right, as a whole. So parameds came into play. This was a huge issue we've been seeing, right? And I'm sure some people on the call are going to talk about that. We couldn't get the fluids. We couldn't send the paramed exams to get those fluids, right? And that became a huge issue. We have clients with huge lists of people that have submitted apps, but they can't actually pass them through and formally deliver to them. Then you go to delivery. A lot of companies are still mailing out, right? Well, how was the mail system affected? How was their printing shops affected, right? Can they do e-delivery? Boom, another break in the chain in many cases. And then you get to servicing, right? Where are these people servicing? Well, agents, PDFs, calling in call centers. Everyone had to go home, right? And once again, we had a break. Yes, a lot of companies rose to the occasion very quickly, and everyone was working from home. And in other cases, there was lags in that. And then you get to engagement. Well, if 95% of life is sold through an agent and all that largely is done in person, in the office, at the restaurant, we're trying to do the yearly exams. Ultimately, engagement for the last 3 months, very specific engagement in person, et cetera, has been dramatically limited. And then you get to claims. We all know, unfortunately, COVID brought about 100,000 plus deaths in the US alone. And now you have lots of deaths taking place. And, depends. A lot of older people have died, so not a lot of them have life insurance right at this point, especially term, et cetera. But the claim process is now at risk, and or is that company ready to get the story or ready to meet the need of that person that's now filing for their loved one? That's what we're going to talk about today. This is the story. So, like I said, I'm no researcher. I'm just feeling the market direct on and experiencing the calls we're getting in and the needs that are taking place. So what I want to do now is shift to Human API. What we're going to do is we're going to take a closer look at each one of these companies on how specifically COVID is affecting their business, why they're getting the calls, and what they're bringing. Nick, off to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Dustin. Love the introduction. So everybody on the call who may not know what Human API is a consumer-centric health data sharing platform. And essentially, we help consumers share their information with third parties that they trust. In the past few years, we've seen a huge traction in the life insurance space, carriers using us specifically for underwriting, right? Human API allows carriers to collect electronic health record information in a matter of minutes by enabling the consumer with a slick digital process that allows them to share this data with the carrier. In regards to COVID, we've seen our customer base pretty much double in the past, 2 months. And where the chain broke and what Human API fixes is that of the underwriting chain, right? So carriers very much looking to get those traditional underwriting requirements in that required human touch, right? Parameds, labs, even APSs, right? Getting an APS, these folks at the hospital healthcare system were sent home. There was no one there to release these records. So how are carriers going to deliver this information to, the folks who were looking to get a policy during this time? That's specifically where we're coming to help out with. So again, Human API, we're putting the consumer in the driver's seat. Our technology gives the consumer a really slick digital experience by which they can search for their healthcare provider and then connect their medical records and send this to a carrier digitally within a few minutes. We do have a nationwide network, so Human API covers about 90% of the healthcare providers in the United States. So it's very likely whenever a consumer wants to share data with a carrier for the purposes of underwriting, that the institution or the provider that they go to receive medical care, they're going to be able to find that within the network. We also, again, have our own digital authorization. We don't rely on the standard HIPAA authorization process, the traditional analog process that's used today in the life insurance space. We don't require a special authorization of any kind. The only thing Human API requires is the user identifies who their healthcare provider is and that they authorize with the credentials to their patient portal at that healthcare provider. So very much for folks who are maybe familiar with like a Venmo or a Mint.com, whenever I want to use those consumer financial tools to complete a transaction, I link my online Bank of America or on my online Chase account, right? With Human API, it's the same way. If I'm an applicant looking to share my information with a carrier to expedite the underwriting process, I just simply use my credentials that I have with my patient portal at my healthcare provider, and the data is sent on its way. So again, something that we're helping the carriers out with today, replacing APSs. I think that there is an exciting use case to expand beyond just underwriting, helping carriers on the claims side even, right, with DI and long-term care claims needing access to medical information to process those claims efficiently. We're seeing new use cases with that as well. So with that, I'll try to make this short and quick and answer any questions folks have towards the end of the session. So Dustin, I'll go ahead and turn it back over to you.
Well, thank you. We're gonna jump back in and with another quick overview of how Atidot is helping insurers right now during this post-COVID world.
Thanks, Dustin, and thank you everybody for joining us today. A brief overview about Atidot for the guys on the call who may not know who Atidot is. Atidot is a startup company that brings together AI experts, data scientists, and insurance expertise to help insurance companies better understand how customers interact with their insurance products. So the goal is basically to leverage the fact that you have the client relationship and the data to monetize that and better understand what are the client needs and how do they interact with the policy to improve both top line as well as bottom line through better customer relationships such as upsell, cross-sell, retention, agent reassignment, etc., as well as optimize the bottom line through better capital efficiency, pricing, and underwriting. And as Dustin mentioned in the introduction, I think COVID brought into the discussion a lot of very interesting use cases, because if I can name a few, since January of 2020, we saw a change in regulation around CSO and PVR. I see there is a typo here, CSO and PVR. And then there was the COVID outbreak, shelter in place. We moved, there was a big move to EAP, term products, accelerated underwriting. Then there was a change in interest rate, a change, unemployment started picking up. Then there was the governmental plan for the payroll protection. Then we start seeing different exit phases in different areas in the country. Now there is a concern about new outbreaks and second waves, and again changes in unemployment, et cetera, et cetera. And this is just and this is only June. Usually in the traditional world, for insurance companies, when they're thinking through pricing and policies and servicing and new products and customer engagement, the thought is that when you make a change, the world is standing still. And what we are experiencing since the beginning of the year is that the world is moving in a rapid pace. And I think going back to some of the things we are discussing on this call, there is a major shift into data-driven digital approach that allows insurance companies to take into their data and customer relationship. Just to give an example, and there was an announcement yesterday that Pacific Life picked Atidot and iPipeline to build a product that is focused on understanding where the market is trending, to leverage the fact that the insurance company, the insurance industry is now moving in a rapid space, and there is a new need in understanding where customers are going, understanding how placement ratio looks like, what are the different needs of different customers, and what type of policies do they pick, what type of premiums do they pick, et cetera, et cetera. On top of that, I think some of the new use cases we see around data-driven decisions during this period in history is that insurance companies are now more concerned than ever on optimizing risk, behavior, lapse, profitability into one big equation. Like one of the things that we released during this COVID outbreak is a study around post-level term. In post-level term, you need to think through both mortality, consumer behavior, pricing, profitability, to find out the right formulas to take the right decisions. And this is just one example. On top of that, there is the ability to analyze where the market is trending, understand more accurately what customer needs, what a customer needs are, how to take into account lapse, how to take into account upsells, and so on and so forth. And I think to maybe the underlying theme that relates to all of that is that now we are experiencing those chain emails coming from all of our providers. In this time of need, you may be interested in XYZ offerings. And I think, as Dustin mentioned at the introduction, insurance is definitely a product that people in this situation would find a big need for. And there is a big opportunity here to nurture this relationship, to improve the customer relationship, optimize the portfolio, and get a win-win both for the customer, for the agent, and for the carrier. And I will discuss more of that on the second half of the webinar. But Dustin, I bring it back to you.
Great. Well, I'm going to pass it to Bobby at Benekiva to to tell us more.
Perfect. So Benekiva is a technology platform designed to solve specific problems in the life and health industry while providing that beautiful customer experience. We've created a SaaS platform, and our claims module offers the carriers 100% digital claim process end to end. We are able to connect to multiple systems across an organization to offer one single claims platform, regardless of the product line, product rules, writers, or the underlying company that the policy was underwritten. And our mission is to bridge the gap. Let's see. Our mission is to bridge the gap. Is the slides moving?
Yes, they are. Good.
Awesome. Okay. Our mission is to bridge the gap between the insurance carriers, policyholders, and beneficiaries. Here's a look at some of our customers. As you can see, we work with all tiers of customers, and we are partnering with 2 top admin companies to integrate our claim solution out of the box. So Benekiva handles the entire claims value chain from claim intake to payout and even more. And what we noticed with COVID were carriers were facing several challenges across that entire claims value chain. So one of our carriers shared with us that they had to move an entire operations in-house during this pandemic because the services were offered were offshore, and they had to be closed due to country-specific restrictions. So what I'm going to do now is walk you through the entire claims value chain and how it helped our customers who are currently using our platform. So it starts with claim intake, allowing our users the promise of anywhere, anytime, and any device. And this isn't just for the claimant. This is also for our claim staff. And during COVID, one of our carriers reported that they paid a claim close to 10 o'clock at night from their iPhone. So really living that promise for our carriers. Our workflow engine allows that work allocation and routing based on carriers' rules and process. So any specialized process, think about contestable claims, can be routed. The claims manager has oversight into the work that gets completed, which gave the confidence to the carrier staff to quickly enable remote work for their claims department because everything was on the cloud and everything was transparent. And in our space, in the life space, there are requirements galore that the beneficiaries have to submit in order to process the claim. And they're very specific based on product rules, data variables such as cause of death. And with our digital workflows through Benekiva, it provided the beneficiaries the flexibility to complete these processes all electronic, including the automation of correspondence and statements. And when it comes to claims processing, having that transparency of claim status is very critical. And it makes it very easy for the claimant to know what's happening to the claims without having the need to make a phone call, hence reducing the burden on customer service. So with processing also comes all of these processes such as automating key calculations as penalty interest, which allowed our carriers to have that efficiency. So one of our carriers saw hours shaved in that process, which equivalent to a head count. And that we're just talking about interest calculations alone. From a payment perspective, we have an integration which allows same-day ACH or instant push to debit. And we were thinking about COVID, allowing that carrier that flexibility that they can pay claims faster is so critical. We also allow partial.
Hey, Bobby, I want to introduce you. Your slide may have not changed. I want to let you know that you're on customers and partners. I just wanted to make sure you did know that, and I apologize if I messed up your flow.
No, I think in my slideshow, I'm actually showing claims value chain.
Yeah, so for some reason it's not showing. I just wanted to make you aware of that. So I got some help on the back end.
Okay, perfect. This is the slide that we should be on. So what I was sharing about the claim payout was allowing the carriers that flexibility of even partial paying that claim, which really allows more flexibility and serves the families during this time of need. We even allow some of the processes such as auditing the claims and generating claim packets. So now you have the ability of allowing the internal audit staff to come into the platform and do these processes while majority of the time it has been in paper. And then finally triggering the new business functionality. I'll end by saying on our side, this is all possible because of the flexibility of our integration layer. As one of our carriers shared with us when they selected for a POC, that this is a strong reflection of our technical architecture platform, ability to deliver business value to our customers with minimal coding and ability to quickly integrate using modern architecture. So with that, Dustin, over to you. And we can't hear you.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I was already told, by the way, for everyone on the call, I was told I talked too loud in some nice text messages, so I do apologize to each one of you. I get excited here. Well, let's see, I'll throw up my slides. I wanted to give you just some quick shotgun tutorial of what we're seeing here at Surify. Many of you know, or I hope you know, kind of what we do here at Surify. We offer kind of a next generation e-application, which I'll go over here. Call it full stack omni-channel service and engagement software. And we white label that for insurers. So what we've been getting is a lot of inbound due to COVID based on number one, insurers really felt any insurer that isn't able to sell completely digitally felt that pain immediately. And so our Acquire suite, we call LifetimeACQUIRE, has seen great growth in kind of prospects wanting to get it done immediately. The line I use is that, or literally an exact quote was, we had a 3-year agenda, but COVID hit, and now we need to launch by 2021. And as many of you know on the call, you can't sell with accelerated underwriting overnight white labeled in like a matter of 30 days. That's just not a reality. So what we're seeing is a huge push to launch the next 3 months, in some cases 6 months, with the e-app. With us, the big draw has been that we offer omni-channel. So they're able to offer the agent the full sales capability, but also when now it shifted to maybe in this case a lot of call centers taking place, that full call center application and sales process. And then thirdly, obviously the fastest emerging that we're seeing driven by the D2C game in general is the D2C full stack system. And as you can see here, it's completely integrated with automated underwriting, chat co-browsing, even the save and return and being able to pass back and forth between that call center and at home. And then, the payment integration, e-sign, and then e-delivery. Just, COVID really pushed a lot of people over the edge to say, like, this era is here, and we need to enable that full omni-channel flow. The second is we've seen a huge draw for what we call our on-track feature, which is now when you're in between, like I said, 50% of applications don't go directly, don't get accelerated underwriting on the spot that minute. And so you get, more than ever you're having, and in this case with COVID, without the paramed, you have all these people sitting in between, right? They're waiting for their application. They want status. And so we call it's on the back end, we call it the Domino's pizza tracker. We're not supposed to say that, but ultimately, if you can know where your pizza and if the pepperoni's coming on, you need to know, the consumer of today needs to know where their application is. And so it feeds in the new business system. We use natural language processing, and we communicate all in real time to both the agent and the consumer, enabled by that customer. But we've just seen COVID drive a lot of people to say, not only as an industry we needed this, but now COVID, we had all these people stuck in this process, and it's brutal in regard to communicating with them. The third is been our, around lifetime service. So our lifetime service module is for full stack web and mobile servicing capabilities. But if you look at what's happening here with COVID, we had a lot of people go on in unemployment. We've had a lot of people get laid off, and there's been a lot of changes. And so the ability to do lapse notifications in real time, push out text, push notifications and through those applications with those that have lifetime service is a huge draw. I think ultimately, even if the company hasn't implemented lifetime service, what we're seeing is everyone wants to know, like, hey, in 2021, I just need to make sure nothing can affect my full digital flow going forward. And we've seen this be a huge push to make sure they're enabled for all communication to be digital. And that can be with the, keep in mind, this can be, it can come from the agent digitally, but also from the enterprise and their systems. You know, the lapse is obviously going to come from the new business system, or sorry, the policy admin, and then it passes through our system. The third thing that I'll highlight is you realize that if someone's not able to sit down with their customer, if that agent's not able to sit down, how are they gathering this data like an annual check-in, or how are they educating those individuals? And what we found is there's been a lot of refocus now that with COVID taking place on saying, okay, all the things that our agents or our current distribution is restricted from doing, how do we look at that as a pure digital play? Because we think as we hit 2021 and even today, all that communication truly becomes omni-channel. The question is when, if everyone stopped overnight kind of coming into the office, does that go back to normal, or do we see even the most kind of non-digital era change, or non-digital, generation change to where now they're doing 50% of the in-person that they did before. And so we just see a huge draw to have these type of capabilities. Once again, we're a large enterprise application that's white labeled, so you can't just press a button and turn this on. Minimum it's 30 days. And for Acquire, for example, we target about 4, to do a full stack implementation, it's months. So this is like COVID kind of exposed it all. I call it exposed the light on the digital liabilities, and now it's kind of here to stay, and everyone's chasing down solving those realities. All righty, well, that is what I have here. I'm going to stop sharing, and we're going to transition into those ad hoc questions. I know some of you know about it, so hopefully and I do hope you learned something new. But also, the real question is what are the new things that COVID has brought about, and we want these founders and leads here to kind of share. So the first question I have is for Dror. I'm going to let you kick it off. And I think the question that everyone's wondering is, since COVID, do you have requests for new types of data, and or are the insurers looking to create or feed in new types of data to kind of help with you call it this digital or COVID restricted world?
Yeah, thanks, Dustin. I think it's a very interesting question. I think as we discussed, some of the data that insurance companies were relying on for years have changed dramatically overnight. In the traditional world, companies were relying on the face-to-face meeting, on the ability to take liquids as part of the underwriting process. Even if you think at a broader ramification of this situation, people that are now working from home are experiencing different types of risks. And I think one of the things we started seeing is that there is a bigger need to better understand the segmentation of the clients. If you think, for example, about I'm trying to think of an interesting example, but let's think, for example, about people that are based in New York compared to people that are based in San Francisco. Both are experiencing a complete different situation now during this shelter-in-place experience. The outbreak is different. People that are being, unfortunately, laid off are different. People that are going to find themselves re-employed after the situation going to be different. So I think one of the things we experience is that the industry is much more interested in being able to slice and dice much more accurately. So you need to be aware of about data points that are now changing in real time that previously were not changing at that cadence. For example, unemployment, for example, changes in demographic and things like that, to better understand how the customers interact, or will they pay the policy, will they lapse, will they need additional products, and so on and so forth.
Thank you. let's see, Bobby, Nick, do you guys have anything to add there on, new data or big data requests that are coming in kind of overnight, right? They're limited. We all, and the insurer in particular, is limited in the data they can collect. Anything on your guys' use cases here?
Yeah, I mean, for us as a data provider to carriers for underwriting, I mean, carriers are always looking for more information on the individual, health related, right, to underwrite the policy. We're working in the space of electronic health records, but I think there's a huge opportunity for carriers to start using data beyond electronic health records, like wearable data, right? I mean, all of these devices that folks have on nowadays, can I use this for the purposes of, engaging them post issue, right? Or can I use it potentially for underwriting? We've started to see more of those conversations happen. Primarily, though, again, what we're focused on is making sure we're getting them everything from an electronic health record standpoint, right? Everything from notes, narratives, immunizations, medications, all of the kind of key information they need to underwrite the policy.
Nick, I do want to, like, you and I have talked for years about the post-issue use case, and I call it out because, just to let everyone know, I think everyone's fixated. We've all been fixated as an industry on underwriting at the point of sale, right? Or, before they go in force. And I think it's super interesting to see like how COVID and someone's health conditions and all the above, that those EHRs and those health records have information that we could use to intervene. Like, this is a future case, so bear with me, people on the call, but it's like, we do see this great use case coming about that we can see where someone's life situation based on health can change pretty dramatically, and post-issue data could be a great opportunity. I will comment that just recently, Apple, I got a blood exam. I was having some issues, and so I went into the doctor, and it was so crazy. My Apple Health literally did something similar where my EHR updated, and it put it all on my phone. And I thought that was that was the first time I'd had like a real-time blood exam post integration to where they updated me. I thought that was exactly the use case. Like, they're working along as I get that updated.
Yeah, and Dustin, to that point, I mean, if a carrier is using an engagement platform for, post issue, right, with their in-force book of business, I mean, that is the type of data that we're allowing carriers to retrieve on an ongoing basis, right? So through Human API, connecting the records to a carrier, not only are you getting just a snapshot in time, but when you go to the provider later on, that information is able to be synced to the carrier so they can come back. If I issued a policy to somebody who has maybe diabetes, but we see their build and their A1C test heading in the right direction, let's go back to that individual, tell them they qualify for an additional face amount, right? Those are the types of things that you'd be able to do to, further engage and almost kind of cross-sell and upsell your in-force book of business.
Great. Well, I'm going to move us on from this question and give one over to Bobby, because I think, you have a very robust system. I feel as though, having been in the life space for a while now, claims is like always this question mark. Surify is pursuing integrating with you guys there and those systems, but it's just an area that hasn't been conquered, and so or at least well in a new way. So can you talk about how dependencies have changed on implementation, any challenges that COVID has created, and or maybe like just major opportunities here?
So I think from a challenges perspective, what we've approached as a company is continue to investing in our integration methods, making it very easy for carriers to leverage our system. So if you don't have an API, we can consume a flat file, for example, and it's innovating our technology so that it reduces that dependency on their IT staff. And that's been key, is how do we make it easier for the carriers and less dependent on their IT staff, because they're already taxed with a lot of back office operations because of COVID. Another piece that we're continuing to look at more, it's a challenge, but also an opportunity, is leveraging unstructured data and making claims processing very easy for the carrier staff. So for example, disability long-term care claims, how do we make it easy for us to really consume unstructured data in terms of invoices and automatically, allocate benefit codes to pay that claim faster through the cycle?
Got you. Well, thank you. I will tell everyone that's above my pay grade on the claim side. So I'm glad, Bobby, you're enlightening a bunch of us, including myself, because that claims is a whole new beast for me. And surely the thing that makes or breaks that final experience with that insurer now that the person's passed on. So I definitely am expecting to see just a lot of change in that area, or exciting updates that make that interaction amazing. Let's see. So I got a question for all of you here. You guys are all business, I call it your business leaders, either at your company or in general here in the insurtech space. And one of the crazy questions I have is, has COVID caused you to think about any new ideas, right? So everyone on the call, we talk about ourselves a lot, right? Everyone's here working hard to solve life insurance problems. But has there been anything interesting that you've thought about in your sleep? I like to say I'm one of the few that dreams about life insurance innovation. I can't help it, and I take notes all the time when I wake up. But have you had any ideas, not specifically driven from COVID? It could be for your application, but if you had something in general, I thought it'd be interesting to discuss.
I'll go first on that one. So not only did I dream about this, we are actually executing this. So
how convenient! This is great.
As a technologist, right? So one of the pieces, like, when you're in the life space, and especially on the claim side, you're inundated with still having to support fax operations. Those things are not going away. But how do we move companies further into using mobile devices? So a feature that we are actually innovating on is completely the entire claims process for life, disability, doing all through your phone, through SMS. You don't even have to go through your email. It's completely like starting a claim to getting statuses to paying, getting notifications, all through your phone.
That is super interesting, and like that's even what I think is interesting is the extreme case, and I'm using extreme not as a bad thing, but like to think that it's literally through even a text channel is even that much, I'd say, like more projective than what like an application itself, because I know we've been working on that mobile experience that guides that process, but to think it's even just text is, as I say, super exciting. To think that someone could get a massive sum amount transferred into their family or their account based on that is I say exciting to imagine. I don't want to even say hard to imagine. I think it's exciting. Why are we limited people? Nick, Dror, would you have any thoughts on, call it, either you guys have created or you have ideas for someone else here today?
Yeah, I mean, just a thought that we've been playing around with. Again, Human API's mission and vision is to be the consumer-centric health data platform, right? The one-stop shop for all organizations to go to get information health-wise on a consumer. And carriers nowadays, I mean, when you talk to them and how many vendors they're using to collect medical evidence for underwriting, it's incredible. They're using so many vendors. So what can Human API do to not just be the provider of the clean, structured electronic health record data, but then also to deliver other pieces of evidence like traditional APSs, right? We want to be that one consumer experience where if they do connect electronic health records, great, but if they don't, you will also be able to get the traditional APS through Human API. So truly being that one-stop shop for all of carriers is something that we're taking very seriously and we're looking to innovate on. On the automation side, right, also, when you get this new data source that is electronic health record data, I don't want to just use it in a way that I've been using the APS, having somebody manually look at it. I want to build rules and automation around it. So this is something, again, we're kind of taking into our own hands and really helping carriers leverage the data from an automated perspective, right? Moving away from the manual underwriting and just truly, that's what we think is really going to move the carriers into a digital landscape where I can connect my healthcare data and get feedback on the policy in a matter of minutes, right? I don't need to wait for an underwriter to sit there and review 200 pages of medical records.
I couldn't agree more. And I say that because that's what I've seen. It's like when you feed in a feed of data to an insurer, the first thing I always say, you give them an application or data. And what I find is the next question they ask is, okay, now what, right? Like, where's the analysis or what do I do? And so either through automation or analysis and then automation that I see, we as technology pushers, innovators, and leaders need to drive that. And I think that that's going to be key. Data may just not be enough as the years come. I got George, did you want to throw one out, or did you?
Sure. And I'll tie this to one of the questions that came out of
Okay, great.
in the chat chat form here, where you can submit your questions as well. I think one of the interesting things that we are now experiencing is the market is the opportunity to move from a transactional experience to a relationship building experience with the customer. Here is this extreme case where people are very much concerned about their health, and they are very much concerned about their financial status, and this happens overnight. And we are all bombarded with offers to get better service from basically everyone that we are working with, from our bank, from our cable company, from our PG&E, from basically everybody. And here's an opportunity for the insurance industry to move into this world of relationship building, because just to give an example, many people have cash value policies, and on the same note, many people are now looking for new methods to create some cash flow for their day-to-day business or for the day-to-day living. We see people are applying for loans. We see people are looking for becoming laid off, becoming unemployed, applying for unemployment, etc. And during all this time, they still have their money invested in a life insurance policy. Maybe there is an opportunity here to transfer this cash value into a cash value loan, into a partial surrender, into a new type of policy that would, on one hand, help some of the people that are in need to release some steam, to get the needed cash for whatever they need for the short-term basis, while nurturing the relationship with the client for a longer term. And same goes for the distribution. Like, the distribution is also experiencing a disruption, moving from a face-to-face meeting, from traditional distribution to e-apps, to digital experiences, to Zoom meetings. And I think the carriers that are able to make this leap of faith and empowering those distribution channels would benefit from having a much better relationship with this distribution going forward.
Thank you, Jor. So hopefully, you guys are seeing that our brains are still turning. We're not stuck just with today. I think the insurance industry is pushing all of us. I always say, we're not good because we're staying in the building. I think we're getting better because we're listening to our customers and understanding what they want and what the industry really needs. And people can pretend like they know, but it's about us working together. I'm going to transition to some Q&A now. We got 10 plus minutes left here. I think I see a couple, Karen in the chat feed has asked something very specific, and I think it's important to look at, so here's the question. With the on-demand economy taking off, where do you see things going on the life insurance side? Do you think in the future that we will see an on-demand pandemic type policy that costs more and protects for a limited amount of time? Super interesting question. I have some thoughts, but no one likes to hear me talk around here. So I'm going to throw it out to our group here. So do you guys think we're going to see this type of policy come about?
Yeah, I mean, it would be very interesting, right? I mean, there's definitely a need for it. I think some people may feel that they're abandoned or that the carriers aren't providing for this type of coverage. If there is something that comes out during these times, something flexible that can be offered quick to the market, yeah, it would be very, very interesting to see. I don't know if that's what we're going to head, but there's definitely a need for it.
Yeah, I mean, my fear, right? Like, I because we're working with a lot of D2C players, the big issue is on fraud, right? Or and this is where I'm speaking, Karen here, right? It's like I see like if the proposition seems like timely and meeting the market's need, but what I hear is every time the insurer really tries to do that, what ends up happening or sorry, what I've heard and what I've seen in some data is that, people take advantage of it. So for COVID, if you say, hey, it's a pandemic type policy, the question is, does everyone who's healthy go get it? Or do we get a bunch of people? All we need is a little bit of fraud to throw off any expectations here, and all the people that are sick go get it. And don't get me wrong, like if you look at simplified issue products, et cetera, they're building that in, hence why they're more expensive. But also there's an expectation, you see the face amounts, right, aren't going to, aren't too high, because ultimately there is an expectation that some people may have got an inkling they have COVID and, are going down in not a good way. And like, for example, if I knew that I was, I had COVID, right, and some policy would give it to me based on if I end up dying, I mean, it would be pretty foolish not to get it, number one, if it was allowed, but two, is everyone going to be honest that they weren't exposed last week, or maybe they're starting to feel sick?
Mm-hmm.
Again, I would say, to the fraud, it's like how much will the insurance carrier even trust the classification on the death certificates, right? So we've seen a lot of cases with that too. So it's what happens to contestability? If you had COVID today and you got the policy, is there some type of a period? So a lot of good questions that will go around in terms of building a product like that.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to move us on to another question. Sorry, George. But this one's for you. Do you feel that, this is from Brent, do you feel that COVID basically forced carriers to change their paradigm of digital transformation, or did they choose to?
I think from what we experience, it's mostly accelerated processes that were already in place. I don't think we experienced somebody that was walking analog going into COVID saying, let's throw everything we've done so far out of the window. Let's do everything. Let's build everything from scratch. Maybe they should have, maybe they should have not, but that's not what we experienced. What we experienced is companies that were on their path for digitization. Maybe they planned for, becoming digital 2025 or 2030. And now they're saying, those 5, 10, 15 components needs to be implemented right away. And they need to be accelerated right now. And I think this is because a lot of those processes are very complex and involve a lot of people in the organization, and involve a lot of cultural changes and education. And I think if you had the foundations in place, it was easier for the organizations to push forward and try and see if they can move, if they can move quicker and try and move and move the needle on those actions, instead of implementing a new strategy from scratch when everybody's home and it's very hard for people to communicate the way they're used to.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I mean, we're just seeing the strategy. We've all been around the InsurTech game for a while now. I think you can agree since 2016, everyone at least has a written down digital transformation agenda of some kind. I will highlight though, we have, and I'm sure some of you have gotten it, we've definitely gotten calls where like an actual chain in the link is broken, right? I look at Human API as an example where I've heard it from clients that like, we can't do paramed. So if you could just give us access, that would be huge. And I would say from we've been working with some pure independent agent distribution channels, and the BGAs and insurers are saying, but I actually need my agents to be able to sell remotely and do like screen sharing, et cetera. And that was something that they didn't have ready, right? So it was literally like, give it to me overnight because business has stopped, right? So I think there has been some feature sets amongst like the greater ecosystem where some people, and that's where I call it exposure, overnight a light was shined like, yeah, we have everything in place, but wait a second, we've never done it, and just sat there with people at their kitchen table digitally, showed them the app with the screen sharing, went through it, filled it out, et cetera, with them. And that was an example we saw come through, and we had to implement like overnight, basically.
I think, Dustin, to add to that, one thing that we do see that this situation creates is that there is this opportunity. We startups always talk about, once the industry moves into a digital world, there are a lot of new opportunities that can come up. And I think this is the time to accelerate this process. And I think some of the companies are now experiencing the question, what happened if data did change overnight? What happened if customer, do make decisions overnight and do make process digitally, etc. And it helps accelerating this thinking process that previously was like more strategic and out there than what we're experiencing now. So, for example, we're working with companies that are interested in demographic data and employment data. Employment data moved from changing maybe in an annual cadence to change in an overnight cadence. United now seeing one night that they are that are firing like most of the company, and now you need to think like, where are those people living? Am I insuring them? Am I not? Do they need something from me? Should I be involved, etc., etc.? And this is a discussion that was not facilitated in the organization, in the insurance industry prior to COVID.
Got you. No, thanks for that, Dror. I got a big there's a toss-up question here. I thought from Otto. I'm trying to not make them all of them. Well, the people on the call that are getting specific questions, I'm going to make sure they can respond back to you, and they'll get you those notes. But here's a toss-up. How many of your new COVID necessity clients, so the ones that changed here overnight, have realized that they can begin, though, dismantling legacy systems? In other words, will they go back to the old way, or was this is this the new normal?
So, hey, Otto, I think it's a great question. And I think what we're seeing is, finally, folks are really looking at the foundation level systems and the need for these systems to have flexibility, being available on the cloud. So I don't think they'll ever go back. No, I don't think anybody that's on their journey will ever love to see a green screen app ever again. So I think the carriers that we work with, they are on their path. They're accelerating, and I don't think they'll ever go back.
Right.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that from what we're seeing, I mean, think of it from a carrier's perspective. This COVID thing happens. You offer a new solution in electronic health record data and human API to your distribution force. You get records within 20 minutes from us to issue a case. Try going back to an APS and telling your agent you're going to order an APS after that. Like, the agent is just going to say, what are you talking about? We did this in 20 minutes before. I'm not going to wait 3 weeks for an APS to come back on this case. Like, that's just incredible. Right. No way. So.
And let's be honest, every time we're at an insurer, no one there wants a legacy way. However, there's a lot of work to implement something. And I always think our team, I'm so proud of our team, when we rise to the occasion when it's required, right? Sometimes it's hard, all of us, and the bigger your organization is, it's harder to move that cruise ship in that ocean. But once you do, no one wants a green screen. No one wants manual data uploads. No one wants 4-week timelines. No one wants manual labor with things that don't need to be manual, and you have to literally interact with that. And so I think it's going to be hard. I do have there is that question. One of the questions here was what are we surprised hasn't changed during COVID? That's the last question here for all of you that have stood the test of time here. We still have quite a few people on the call. I'm surprised, even past when I thought it would end, we were above 100 here. So let's, anybody surprised at what hasn't changed to put in everyone's ear so we can all get on top of it and change this?
Just from our perspective, during the COVID crisis, specifically the month of March, we saw carriers come to us, and it was incredible, right? When we worked with these carriers before, they would say, hey, just letting you know, it's a 6-month-long procurement cycle. We got to go through security risk assessment. And we had one carrier, it took us a year-long contracting cycle. In COVID, we had carriers move forward with us and, from procurement, signing a contract to implementation within weeks. And this is something that I'm just surprised more carriers haven't acted on, right? Making it easy to work with insurtechs. They know this innovation and this type of change is important. Let's make sure that internally we have a track that makes it easy to work with these type of organizations, startups, insurtechs that can help us act on this change.
Hey, Nick, I'm going to cut you off. I'm going to cut us all off because I never finish on time, and I might be on time today. Thank you all for this, for joining us. Thank you to my friends and peers here from Benekiva, Atidot, Human API, and we truly appreciate the almost 150 people that joined today, which is quite amazing for a first little webinar. So thanks so much. We'll be sending you the information here so you can access anybody that you have on the call today. And as you know, we're always here for you, and we're working hard to move the industry like everyone on the call. We will end now, and have a wonderful day. Stay safe, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.